Hi, my name is Lyric, and today we're going to be reacting to Making the Case, the 2001 Lakers. Now, we did the Making the Case series for all 8 players, and now we're going on to the Making the Case for the greatest team of all time, starting up with the first one he released of the 2001 LA Lakers, when Shaq and Kobe led the Lakers to only lose one playoff game the entire time, and won the championship. So let's just get into it, and we'll speak on it now and see the case for the 2001 Lakers as being the greatest team of all time.
What's the goal of basketball? To win, right? But not just to win individual games.
Let's go.
The ultimate goal is to win a championship. Of course, basketball is a team sport. Championships are won by the most complete, most inspired team. Every champion deserves credit, but the question on my mind is, who's the greatest team of all time? With apologies to Bill and Wilt, I have a list of 8 teams since 1970 that I want to look at as having a claim.
I feel you should have done one for the 66, like the 60 Celtics and the 66ers.
To that distinction.
I don't understand why he didn't.
It is a loaded question, and one that I ultimately can't answer. Is it the teams that were front runners from beginning to end? The ones who were unbeatable at their peak? Maybe the ones who tapped into something special and overcame countless obstacles? There is no right answer. It's your job to make your own call. And it's my job to make the case. So today, I'll be making the case for the 2001 Los Angeles Lakers as the greatest basketball team of all time.
I think this is the greatest duo in NBA history. I think it's the greatest duo in NBA history. I think maybe Jordan and Pippen. Maybe even people say Steph Curry, Kevin Durant.
Here's what you need to know right away.
I think this right here has to be the greatest 1-2 punch in NBA history. Like, it's insane. I think like their peak, they were like a legit both top 3 players. It's actually insane. 2001 Lakers, 56-26 in the regular season, which isn't like insane, but it's what they did in the playoffs. 15-1 in the playoffs, tied for the best playoff record ever. Well, they tied for the least playoff losses ever. They didn't have 16 games because the first round was a best of 5 instead of best of 7. So yeah, the 83 Sixers, 2001 Lakers, and 17 Warriors all tied for the least amount of playoff losses. Each of them only lost 1 game in the entire playoffs. Second in offensive rating, 21st in defensive rating. Remember, lower is good, I believe, in defensive rating. Third in points per game, 23rd in what is this? Opponent points per game. There you go. 47% field goal percentage, 34% three-point percentage.
Went 56-26 in the regular season and 15-1 in the playoffs. They were captained by.
Let's look at the roster. We got Shaquille O'Neal, I would say probably the best player in the world at this point. I mean, his prime is absolutely insane. He was the best scoring center in the game. He was arguably the best defensive center in the game. He was arguably the best passing center in the game. And he absolutely, in the finals, he was going insane against the defensive player of the year, Dikembe Mutombo, and he just could not stop him. It was insane. Kobe Bryant, not in his prime yet, but he was not getting carried at this point. I believe in the conference finals, he averaged 28 points a game and 7 rebounds and 7 assists, and he was playing arguably better than Shaq in the first 3 rounds. Just in the finals that Shaq absolutely started to dominate. Horace Grant, he had previously won 3 championships as the third option on the Chicago Bulls, and this was later in his career. And yeah, he's actually a very underrated player all time. He's in the team. Rick Fox, arguably the 3rd best player on this team. You have Derek Fisher, who contributed a lot to 5 Lakers championships. Another player you can argue is the 3rd best player on the team, Brian Shaw. You got Robert Horry, 7-time NBA champion, arguably the 3rd best player on the team as well. Ron Harper, previous 3-time champion on the Chicago Bulls. Mike, I don't know who you are, Mike, not gonna lie to you. Mark Madsen, Devin George, Tyronn Lue, Greg Foster as Stanislav Medvedenko.
Shaquille O'Neal and Kobe Bryant rounded out their roster with several fantastic two-way players.
Tyronn Lue, of course, got stepped over this season,
and were
but it's all right.
Coached by Phil Jackson.
Became an NBA champion as a coach.
Uh-oh.
Tyronn Lue.
Did you hear that?
Basketball like you.
I'm in trouble, because that was the sound of a very big red flag going up.
Huh?
56-26? That's the record of a pretty good team. not the record of a team in contention for the greatest team of all time. Over the last 40 years, excluding lockout seasons, only 3 other champions won fewer regular season games.
Wow, that's actually really surprising. 95 Rockets, I know, because they were the lowest seed to ever win the championship. They were the 6th seed. 04 Pistons, the underdog Pistons, and the 06 Heat.
Games. We're like 2 minutes into the video, and I already have my work cut out for me. What the hell happened, and how on earth is this team even in this conversation? What the hell happened? The short answer is a lack of identity, poor defensive discipline, complacency, injuries, and the most famous power struggle.
You also have to remember that they were just coming off a championship. This is their 2nd championship.
Between 2 teammates in league history.
Yep.
How are they in this conversation? The short answer is because Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal represent the best, most unguardable, unstoppable, unbeatable
best duo all time.
1-2 combination in the history of the NBA. The long answer is all of that.
The more I said thinking about all-time duos, I said obviously Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen. I said Steph Curry, Kevin Durant. I never even thought about that before. They actually have a damn good case of the greatest duo of all time at their peak, bro. Steph Curry, Kevin Durant, they were arguably the 2nd and 3rd best player in the world, most likely. I mean, Shaq was the best player in the world.
You know,
so I don't.
Talk about it more. First, let's frame this team. This Lakers team was smack dab in the middle of what would end up being 3 consecutive championship seasons, a feat no other franchise has been able to accomplish since. In 2000, the Lakers won 67 regular season games on their way to their first championship since 1988. Shaq was 1 vote away from being named the first unanimous regular season MVP and added the Finals MVP at the end of
and finished 2nd in DPOY while leading the league in scoring.
The year to cap off his ascension to basketball's throne. Kobe, at age 21, was already emerging as one of the premier perimeter players in the game. His well-rounded skill set and approach to the game made him the consensus heir apparent to none other than Michael Jordan. He was a critical part of the team's makeup and was already on the fast track to basketball immortality. Following the championship, Shaq took time to rehab and rest his body at Phil Jackson's direction. And in what should come as no surprise to anyone in hindsight, Kobe conversely spent countless hours in the gym, honing his skills, determined to fulfill his own goals of hoops supremacy. By the time the team reconvened for training camp, tensions immediately arose between the 2 superstars and their different approaches to the offseason. Kobe was frustrated seeing Shaq return out of shape after just having had the best season of his career, while Shaq was frustrated with the young shooting guard presuming to be in a position to criticize him following a championship season.
They were both in the wrong in their own way.
It makes sense from both sides.
Right.
On the one hand, you have Kobe, the patron saint of the perfectionist and determined, someone for whom effort and diligence was second nature. He had just labored all summer because he was coming into his own and was ready to assume the mantle of superstar. Why wouldn't he be frustrated seeing someone fail to meet his own tenacious work ethic, let alone his partner in crime, the reigning league and finals MVP? On the other hand, imagine the situation from Shaq's perspective. Here's a guy who was 7'1" and 320 pounds.
Right, like I'm the best player in the world. How are you telling me that I'm lazy?
Nimbleness and explosiveness. He was truly an anomaly of human anatomy. He'd been the best and biggest guy on every team he'd ever played on, forged against the Hakeems and the Ewings and the Robinsons. He'd been exerting himself and taking a physical toll for years, and he finally had a ring to show for it. Why wouldn't he take some well-deserved time off? He'd earned it, and if you believe Phil, he did what he was told to do. And now he comes back, and this youngster is telling him that he should be working harder? Throughout the season, these disparate attitudes failed to consistently produce wins on the court. You hear all the time about the alpha dog trope that a pair of great teammates face. From Wilt Chamberlain and Jerry West, to LeBron and Dwayne Wade, to Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. These chance pairings always come with the baggage of who's...
Because every team, to be a successful team, most of the time you need a really good leader. You need a leader of the team. And when you have multiple people that think they're the leader of the team, it just doesn't work out because it ends up being no one's the leader. Unless both of those players are 2 of the greatest players of all time, it can make it work out.
Who's the one who's supposed to get the last shot? Whose team is it? And this team took that trope to new levels. Kobe had developed into perhaps the league's most complete player and was eager to prove that he could, and perhaps should, be the player leading the Los Angeles Lakers. At the same time, some of the warts of Kobe's hero ball tendencies came to light as he truly believed that the team was in the best position to succeed when he was the one with the ball in his hand taking the most shots. Shaq, of course, resented the fact that coming off the heels of his most successful season, he was already being challenged by his young teammate. The rest of the team, meanwhile, was caught in this maelstrom of egos, unable to find a playstyle or approach that could appease both stars and produce winning results. Even Phil Jackson, who would retire as the most decorated basketball coach to ever live, struggled to amicably settle the
13-time NBA champion. Most championships in NBA history, if you account for his coaching and player career. 2 with the Knicks as a player, then with coach, 6 with the Bulls, then 5 with the Lakers.
Jackson, long known throughout the league as the Zen Master.
Do you guys think Phil Jackson's the greatest coach of all time, or would you go like Greg Popovich or something?
His philosophical and holistic approach to coaching couldn't find a way to foster the same synergy that the Lakers had ridden to a championship just months prior. Jackson believed that the success of the team is predicated on the sacrifice of the individual. It's a trite cliche for organizations to talk about a team-first philosophy, but it's an idea rooted in truth.
Right.
To galvanize this team, Kobe
Hero ball never won anyone a
would
championship.
have to accept that despite his tremendous abilities as an individual, this team couldn't reach its full potential if he took every shot. At the same time, Shaq needed to accept that Kobe was ready to be a more integral part of this team, which would indeed merit him more credit in their victories. As the season continued, this rift only grew deeper. The two were constantly at odds on the court and trading barbs through the media off of it. Through sheer talent, the team was still competitive in most of their games and near the top of the standings, but it seemed to many that they were on a collision course of self-destruction. In fact, it soon became
This team is like the Brooklyn Nets if they worked out.
a foregone conclusion to many members of the media that a trade was inevitable, that the feud was irreparable, and that the Lakers were better off cutting bait and acquiring assets for one of their stars. You would hear quotes from Bryant saying, "Turn my game down? I need to turn it up. I've improved. How are you going to bottle me up? I'd be better off playing someplace else." You'd hear Shaq.
The fact that Kobe spent his entire career with the Lakers is actually insane because there were so many times that he wanted to leave or like requested a trade and something, but he has stayed there the entire
Something
time.
like,
20 years.
Went through me. The outcome was good. It was 67-15, playing with enthusiasm. The city was...
I'm actually a lot more leaning towards Shaq in this beef. I think he was in the right most time because he was the best player in the world. He was better at Kobe at the time. Later on, Kobe became obviously better than Shaq, and with all time, it's a pretty close debate, I'd say. But at this time, Shaq was definitely better. They just had a season where he was the main guy, and they dominated, won the championship. I think I'm more on Shaq's side in this beef.
Jumping up and down, we had a parade and everything. And now we're 23-11, so you figure it out.
And because of this draining situation in the locker room, LA simply wouldn't put the effort in on most nights to effectively defend, leading to one of the worst defenses in the league. Shaq also presented a problem with his notoriously poor free throw shooting just 51%.
Oh, so I was probably reading the graphic back here wrong. Because I thought it was going to... I was probably reading this graphic back here wrong. So, yeah, okay. So I was like, okay, there's no way they were the nearly worst defense. Okay, so they actually probably were one of the worst defenses in the league. Okay, I was just assuming that it would mean lower is better because sometimes defensive stats are like that. And I was just assuming it would be the better one, but
From
yeah,
the
wow.
stripe, Shaq was the major culprit in making the
about
Lakers
this.
the worst free throw shooting team in the league.
That one he was definitely in the
On
wrong
top
about.
of it all, Shaq and Kobe combined to miss 22 games. Ron Harper missed substantial time due to knee injury, and perhaps
Right.
most importantly,
Ron Harper barely played in the NBA Finals. Their starting 5 in the NBA Finals was Derek Fisher, Kobe, Rick Fox, Horace Grant, and Shaq.
Derek Fisher missed the first 62 games of the season with a broken foot.
Oh, wow.
Derek Fisher, the team's backup point guard, who hadn't started a single playoff game the year prior, returned to the court on March 13th, and with him brought the fire back to Los Angeles.
Oh shit.
Instant-
Well, I tell you, man, Derek Fisher's underrated.
Inserted
A major part on 5 championship
into the
teams.
starting lineup, Fisher came back with a hot hand, which helped space the floor for other shooters and, most importantly, for Shaq. He brought a new defensive energy that would eventually encourage the team and shore up their biggest weakness. And most importantly, he brought stability. By the time he retired, Derek Fisher had set the record for most playoff games played in an NBA career.
Wow.
What's more, Derek Fisher was never the most important player or top scorer on any of those teams. That's just
Not in
not
game
what he
winners
brought to
saying.
the table. But it's no mistake that he found himself on so many playoff teams in so many playoff games. Teams were, almost without exception, better with Derek Fisher on the roster. He had a feel for the game that went beyond makes and misses. When and how to feed Shaq. When and why to let Kobe operate. And when and how to get the ball to the rest of the Lakers.
I've watched the 2001 finals, bro. He came in clutch
Make
threes.
this group of
And the 2002 finals. Actually, I'm thinking about more of the 2002 finals. He kept hitting those clutch
talented
threes
players
against the Nets.
In the 20 regular season games that Fisher played, the Lakers went 15-5.
He was their best three-point
and
shooter.
Finished the regular season with an 8-game win streak, their longest all season. And in this late season confluence of events, the final piece fell into place. As Fisher returned from injury, Kobe fell victim to it. He missed 11 of the team's last 21 games. And in those games, the Lakers went 8-3. During that time on the bench, Kobe saw the success that the team was having without him.
Give him a little reality check.
In all of basketball. With Fisher at the helm, the Lakers flowed on offense and seemed energized on defense. You wouldn't say that they were better without Kobe, but they were playing their best basketball of the season without him. If I had to guess, I would venture to say that at some point, maybe not overtly, maybe not all at once, but at some point, Kobe and Shaq decided to meet each other halfway. By now, it was clear that the worst thing
And that was the
about
best
team
solution.
was the relationship between these two.
Now we're 23-11. You figure it out.
But it was also obvious that the best thing about this team was these two. Remember this?
Right.
Somehow, they struck some
Iconic.
kind of accord. Kobe would take a small step back, but Shaq would concede some of the spotlight. Kobe didn't resign to be Robin. Instead, he would be the Batman to Shaq's
Superman. I like that.
I told you
Yeah.
it's a long story. Somehow, despite their underwhelming record and their foibles and their squabbling, they were better. They'd evolved. Shaq had played himself into shape and was bringing the pain every night. Kobe had improved in nearly every aspect of his game. They had the swagger of a winner and the confidence of a champion. They were better than everybody by a ludicrous margin. In all of their playoff games in the Western Conference, they did not lose. Not one game.
Which is insane considering they went against some really good teams. They went against the Kings, who the year after this, they would go into a 7. It would take up 7 games to defeat it and some rough rigging. The Blazers, who they had gone to 7 games the year prior in the conference finals, they had to have that Kobe to Shaq iconic lob for the comeback. And they went against the Spurs, who were the number 1 seed, Tim Duncan,
3
And they swept all of
straight
them.
sweeps, 11 straight wins to go back to the finals. The combination of Shaq and Kobe was apocryphal for other teams. In back-to-back games against the Kings,
Oh my
Shaq
God.
put up
Look at this.
44 and 43 points to take a 2-0 lead. Kobe then took center stage and put up 36 and 48 points.
Okay, come on now. Okay, this did not, 100%. This is the most insane duo of all time. 100%, bro. You imagine someone on the opposing team drops back-to-back 40-point games against you. All right, and then you start to calm him down. You start to play good defense on him. He starts to slow down, and then the other guy just drops 36 and 48.
To put Sacramento on ice.
And the thing is, because of their completely different play styles as well, the completely opposite play styles, you literally could not, it was impossible for you to be able to stop both of these. You would not be able to stop both of them.
And that's the way it went throughout the playoffs. They beat the Spurs, who had home court and the best record in the league, by 14, 7, 39, and 29 points, respectively.
They got fed up those last 2 games. Just said, fuck it, let's just go
was
hard.
An absolute thrashing.
They're playing with
Kobe
their
had his
food.
best series thus far and helped send the Lakers to their second consecutive final.
Would have won a conference final MVP if that award existed.
Chick Hearn, the quintessential Lakers play-by-play broadcaster since 1961, who coined terms like slam dunk, air ball,
Greatest announcer of all
and
time.
triple-double, said this.
There's no team in Laker history ever played at a higher level of perfection than this team is doing.
Really saying something. Showtime.
Matched up against league MVP Allen Iverson's Philadelphia 76ers in the finals, the Lakers stumbled for their first and only time, thanks to Iverson's heroic performance in Game 1. The Lakers responded with 4 consecutive wins to capture their second title in as many years. It wasn't a super dramatic conclusion.
Shaq, dude, he averaged 34 points a game or something, I think it was in this finals against the defensive player of the year to Kevin
Even though some
Mutombo.
of the games were close, it ended up being a 5-game series. But sometimes, being the best isn't about the dramatic 7-game thrillers or the narrow victories.
It's just
Sometimes
about dominating
it's just
people.
about kicking ass. And the Lakers kicked some ass.
Hell yeah, then.
They went 15-1 through the playoffs, as close to a clean sweep as any team has ever gotten.
Well, do you think anyone will ever get a clean sweep of the playoffs?
They faced
I don't think it'd happen anymore because there's too many injuries and risk and stuff. I don't think there's any. I don't see any team in anytime soon getting a clean sweep of the
stiff
entire playoffs.
competition, becoming just the second team in history to defeat 4 straight 50-win teams.
That's insane.
And they posted the highest net rating of any postseason team ever. How? Because they had Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal
all
playing
you need,
together
man.
at the same time on the same team. I don't feel like I've talked enough about what it meant to have 2001 Shaq. With a 7'7" wingspan, he was the most physically dominant
Best player in the
to
world.
ever step onto a basketball court outside of a Wilt Chamberlain. The guy literally changed the way they make NBA baskets.
Yeah.
In the finals against Dikembe Mutombo, who had just won his 4th Defensive Player of the Year award,
Right.
Shaq put up the spectacular stat line of 33 points,
33 points,
15.8
sorry.
rebounds, 4.8 assists, and 3.4 blocks.
5 assists is underrated, man. I'm
En
telling you.
route to-
Shaq's a very underrated passing big
His
man.
second straight Finals MVP award. He had soft touch on his jump hooks, underrated abilities as a passer.
Shaq is up there as I think Shaq and Michael Jordan are the 2 greatest finals performers of all time.
The explosiveness to go over any defender, and the maneuverability to get around any player his size. Defensively, he wasn't Bill Russell or Hakeem Olajuwon, but
But he was damn good. He was one of the best defenders in the league in his
he was
prime.
good enough to be a second-team All-Defensive selection and
Yes.
loomed as one of basketball.
Which is the second team all defense doesn't sound that impressive, but he's a you gotta remember he's a center. So that means he's the second best defensive center in the league, which a lot of the times during this time meant he was the second best defensive player in the league.
Most intimidating forces in the paint. He was the linchpin to this Lakers dynasty. Since its inception in 1969, 2 players have won 3 consecutive Finals MVP awards. One is Michael Jordan. The other
the other's
is
Shaq.
Shaquille O'Neal.
2 greatest finals performers of all time.
Few players in this game's history have come close to matching the level of peak Shaquille
I think Shaq's damn near becoming underrated.
O'Neal. Think you can stop him? Well, then have fun guarding Kobe Bryant. You know, the closest thing to
You
Michael
know.
Jordan that there's ever been.
The fact that the scariest thing is this wasn't even prime Kobe Bryant.
In 2001, Kobe hadn't yet extended
And yet
his
he
range
was just so
effectively
dominant.
beyond the three-point arc. But he was still one of the best shot makers in the business. He had flawless body control, the ability to shower you with an array of shots from damn near anywhere, a ceaseless motor on both ends of the court, and world-class athleticism. He was scintillating in the playoffs and averaged 29, 7, and 6, leading the Lakers.
I don't understand why people say, "Oh, Kobe was carried by Shaq." How are you carried when you average 29 points a game? Like 29 points a game, you're not carried. You cannot be as good as the other guy, but you're not carried if you're averaging 29 a game.
in postseason passing. So, can you stop Shaq? Can you stop Kobe? Can you stop them both? Probably not. But
The
even
hell
if
no.
you can, you now have to
Magic and Kareem might also be in the discussion for greatest duo of all time. I'm still going definitely Shaq and
contend
Kobe
with
though.
a fantasy roster full of two-way beasts. You've got Derek Fisher, a double-digit scorer, offensive maestro, and defensive pest. Rick Fox, who also averaged in the double digits, shot
Right.
39% from three in the regular season, and who was capable of locking down top scorers like Peja Stojakovic. Plus, top shelf playoff veterans
Peja Stojakovic went to finish 4th in MVP voting.
like
Look it up.
Lon Harper, Horace Grant, Brian Shaw, and the X factor of every team he's ever been on,
Robert Horry, man.
Horry. With
7-time
those players,
champ.
Could the Lakers have played today? With a couple of tweaks,
Hell
absolutely.
yeah.
If
They got 3-point shooters, man. They got Rick Fox, Derek Fisher.
the three-point shot rules the day, they can keep up. In the playoffs, the Lakers
And you can argue it'd be more because they would have to space out the floor more to stop because they'd be shooting more threes. So Shaq would be able to be even more dominant.
shot the exact same percentage from three that the 2017 Warriors shot. They have the perfect swingman to switch on defense and enough star power to compete with any team that's come since. I mean, man, wouldn't you love to see a team try to play small ball against Shaq?
Right.
I mean, it's really that simple.
That's the biggest argument of who would win the 2001 Lakers versus the 2017 Warriors. Who the hell's guarding Shaq, bro? Who the hell's guarding Shaq? I would probably say the 2017 Warriors I would put as higher as being better than the 2001 Lakers, but I'm not mad if you say the 2001 Lakers because there's just no one who's going to be guarding Shaq.
You can't stop Shaq, and even if you could, how many other teams in history can tote out another first ballot, first teamer, all-timer, two-way dynamo in their athletic prime as the sidekick? They're the best 1-2
Right.
punch to ever play on the same team at the same time. So, let's say you focus all your attention and energy neutralizing the two of them. Can you stop all of those role players?
Yeah,
Do you
they
think
got
you
really
can
good
do
role
it
players.
all while
They didn't have a third star, but they had really good role players.
coaching Phil Jackson? Pick your poison.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you decide. You're not making it out of there alive. They weren't the best start-to-finish team ever.
I like this background
If
music.
that's your thing, your 1972 Dolphins jersey is in the mail. But when they were at their best, when it came time to win, with stakes on the table, you could not beat this team. They were too good at too many things from top to bottom. Other pairings won more championships together. Other teammates dominated their eras for longer periods of time.
But at just the peak.
But I maintain that no two teammates, as an overall pairing of
I'd agree with the
destructive
teammates
forces
part.
at both ends of the court.
I wouldn't say this is the greatest
were
team of all
better
time, but
than
this is
Shaquille
definitely the
O'Neal
best
and
duo of all
Kobe
time.
Bryant in the playoffs of 2001. The Venn diagram of these two talents overlapped in a way and on a level that has no equal. And that's the enduring legacy of this Lakers team. The yin and yang of conflict and victory. You're gonna get the squabbling and the feuding and the power struggle. It's a byproduct of their talent and of how different these two men were on so many levels. But they realized time and time again that theirs was an unstoppable partnership. They put the pettiness aside, bought into the team and to each other, and won over and over and over again. They didn't win 7 championships together. Instead, they ushered in a new Lakers dynasty, the most unstoppable duo ever, and in 2001, the greatest basketball team of all time.
Man. Yeah, that was really good. I don't know what to tell you. That was just really good. Yeah, so comment your below opinions on 2001 Lakers, greatest team of all time. Make sure to hit red button, make a button blue, leave a thought or something. Bye.